Welcome to Caregiving Club On Air. This podcast is dedicated to the millions of family caregivers who want wellness tips and self-care solutions, who seek expert advice, and who want news about healthy aging and how to create well home design in our forever homes. I'm Sherri Snelling, a corporate gerontologist, author, and educator, a TV interviewer, host, and news commentator. I'm joining you from Southern California, where our interviews and news take us all across the country to explore the many ways to help you on your caregiving journey and to lift you up here at Caregiving Club On Air. Welcome to Caregiving Club On Air and our December episode where we're going to focus on the holidays. I'm Sherri Snelling, your host. We have a wonderful guest interview for this episode. It's Kisa Heyer, who is the CEO of the Dream Foundation, which is a wonderful nonprofit organization that grants the dreams of terminally ill adults, which is a perfect time of year to be thinking about those you love and how to give back. We're also going to take a dive into Caregiver Wellness news. We've had some recent survey results from our friends at Independa, their annual survey that they do on older adult health. So some surprising things there that you may want to stay tuned for, but also some new research out of the University of California at San Francisco on brain health and sleep science, which we know the holidays mean we're probably not getting enough sleep. So you're going to want to listen in on that. And then as we turn to well home design news, we're going to look at December 4th through the 8th, which is Older Adult Driver Safety Week. We're going to share some insights there on older drivers, but also a new caregiver app that was recently announced by Uber Health. We'll tell you all about that. And then we will give you some glimpses into our 4th annual Caregiving Club Holiday Gift Guide, which is a huge hit every year. So we'll give you some tidbits on that, but you're going to be able to both read about it on our website and also view the video version on our YouTube channel. And then we'll wrap up this episode. As we said, focus on the holidays. We're going to talk about the 7 lessons that caregivers can learn from George Bailey from the classic holiday movie, It's a Wonderful Life. And if you're watching me on video right now, you're seeing a sign that somebody gave to me, and I just love it. It says, It's a Wonderful Life. It's one of my most favorite things, and I always think about it this time of year. So welcome to the episode, and let's go ahead and dive into Caregiver Wellness news. So for Caregiver Wellness news, as I mentioned, our friends at Independa, and we had Kian Sanye, who is the CEO of Independa. He was on our podcast earlier this year. We're going to have that episode link on our episode guide page in case you want to go back and listen to what Independa is all about and Kian's insights on telehealth and also just interactive content for adults at home. But they do an annual health survey. Actually, this is their 4th year doing it. And I wanted to share with you some of the findings because they surveyed over 1,000 Americans 55 years old plus. And here are some of the results. Financial constraints. 95% report that financial limitations have forced them to make healthcare compromises. It's definitely something we hate to hear. Also, healthcare cost concerns. 63% significantly concerned about healthcare expenses affecting their finances. And then sacrifices for medication. 34%, almost 1/3, or a little over 1/3, often cut back on essentials to afford their medications, and 61% occasionally cut back. And then from a comfort standpoint, 99% report feeling equally or more comfortable receiving medical help from home. Very interesting results, I think. And I think what it's pointing to is certainly healthcare and finances are so tied together. That's why financial wellness is one of our 7 elements of wellness, where we have to find that balance, but also having our older loved ones be able to live in their home as long as possible. Hospital at home is a big trend among the circles that I work in aging and in caregiving. And I think you're just going to see much, much more. But we need to make sure that we're helping to give good insights to family caregivers on how do you make that happen? What are the costs of maybe modifying the home? What are the things you need to think about to help you out, to keep our older loved ones safe and independent at home. And so many of our guests talk about this, so we'll have some insights on that. But It's a really big part of well home design is making sure that the home environment, the environmental wellness, is a key part and a key component of obviously living longer, healthier, and happier. Now, I also mentioned that UCSF, which does a lot of research on brain health, they recently came out just a couple of weeks ago, actually, with a study among 589 individuals over the age of, or I'm sorry, average age of 40. Okay. So slightly younger than the previous survey we just talked about, but it was talking about sleep and brain health. So the participants completed sleep questionnaires at the start of the study and then again 5 years later. So that's pretty good. That's a fairly longitudinal study that's being done. And we like those because it does show kind of the trend marks over time. And then they also underwent brain scans actually 10 years after that. So this is definitely a long longitudinal study that is showing the changes over time. Okay, so what did they find? So the researchers found that the group that had the most trouble sleeping throughout that 15 plus years of study had brains that were 2.6 years older than those who got better quality of sleep on average. Now, bad sleep quality, difficulty falling asleep, difficulty staying asleep. So we call that sleep disturbance, where you're awakening several times, maybe during the night. Early waking, so your sleep regularity is off. You're not getting up at the same time, going to bed at the same time. All of those are linked to faster brain aging. So it's really important, I think, for us to really understand how sleep is so tied to our health, not just physical health, heart health, muscle health, cellular repair, all the things we talk about with brain, but brain health in general. It's just really important. So, of course, this is a huge theme in my book, Me Time Monday. You guys have heard me talk about this on every single podcast, but, understanding more about how our brains operate, what's important to our brains to keep our brains healthy, keep our brains exercised, do the right thing by our brains. Some of the things that we can think about that relate to sleep, and I'm just going to touch on them quickly because, again, you can read in my book or a lot of the writing I do. No blue light emission. And in fact, we have a little holiday gift guide tip on how you can get around that. Pink noise helps a lot of people, particularly those who have tinnitus or tinnitus. But just in general, pink noise is the sonic hue, if you will, in the sound machines that you want to find. It's mostly light, soft nature sounds. You want your room temperature low. You can take a warm shower before bed or put socks on if you're cold, but the room temperature overall needs to be about between 65, 67 degrees. You can eat cherries and kiwis for dinner because that's going to help with that melatonin to get you into sleep faster. You can write down all the things that you want to do the next day that are just, creating all that brain confusion and that noise pollution in your brain, and you can't you ruminate about it while you're sleeping in bed. Well, put it down on a piece of paper and let it go, and then when you go to sleep, it's there. You won't forget anything the next day. And then certainly using things like whether it's aromatherapy and lavender sprays, whether it's weighted blankets, which some people like, or the Scandinavian sleeping method. And by the way, we talked to Dr. Wendy Troxel on this podcast this year. We'll have that link on, but she's the sleep science expert, and she talked a lot about that Scandinavian sleeping method, which is basically if you're a couple in a bed, you each need your own duvet. That seems to be the answer. And then I just want to do a shout out too on Caregiver Wellness because it's the holidays and caregivers are already overstretched and overwhelmed and have so much to focus on. You do need a break because, you're out doing things. Maybe you're fixing food, you're the host or hostess for the holidays, maybe buying gifts, whatever it is, and taking care of older loved ones, maybe also children at the same time. So you're the sandwich generation we've talked about. But respite care is for you, and that can be delivered by home care agencies. So it's not home health, it's actually what we call more personal care. But you can get a companion to come in to be with your loved one. If you can't be there, gives you a little break so you could go run errands or do something for yourself. Just a couple quick shout outs. We'll have the links on the episode guide page. Arch Respite Care Network is a national online network of respite care services across the country. You can go there and find them. But also, if you or your loved one is a veteran, The VA gives family caregivers 30 hours of free respite care every year into that. Definitely take advantage of that. That's a wonderful gift. So you don't, and that's free for you. And then Hilarity for Charity. I've mentioned them before. Love this wonderful group started by Seth Rogen and his wife Lauren Miller Rogen. But they do scholarships where they provide free respite care for those who are caring for someone with dementia. So there's a lot of ways to maybe find some of these free respite services, or tap into family and friends to help you. But get your break during the holiday. It's important for you to have balance. And speaking of holidays, our fourth annual holiday gift guide, and it's a hit. It's been a hit every year. We're very excited about that. So this is the fourth year that we've been doing it. And as you know, if you've looked at it or read the blog on my website, caregivingclub.com before, we break it down into three categories. So there's caregiver wellness gifts, then there's older adult wellness gifts, and then we do well home design gifts. So we got three different videos this year that you can also check out. The videos I kind of talk you through and give you a little bit more behind why we chose some of these gifts. That's also going to be, as I mentioned, on the blog. You can check it out there and just read about it. But it's kind of fun, and we always get a lot of really great comments and everything back. This year, since we're talking about sleep science, by the way, you're going to want to read about our gift tip on Moon Glow light therapy lamps, and also the Brooklyn blue light blocking glasses, which is great for sleep science. So you can check those out. And speaking of gifts, as I mentioned, we have a very special guest on this episode. It's Kisa Heyer, the CEO of the Dream Foundation. And, I know many of us see the commercials or, are aware of the children's charities that grant terminally ill children wishes. So whether it's Make-A-Wish Foundation, whether it's the Starlight Foundation, but you may not know that those foundations do not grant wishes to people who are over the age of 18 because you're considered now an adult. And so the Dream Foundation, that's where they fill the gap. And they are one of the leading national organizations that provides dreams for terminally ill adults. It's such a wonderful organization. I wrote about them in my first book, A Cast of Caregivers. It was delightful to talk to Kisa. And in fact, I think you're going to really enjoy learning a little bit more about the organization and ways that you can give back too. Even if you don't have a loved one who's terminally ill, there are ways to give back. So with that, here is my interview with Kisa Heyer of the Dream Foundation. So I am really thrilled to have our guest on this episode because I have been such a super fan of this organization for such a long time. In fact, over 10 years ago, when I wrote my first book, A Cast of Caregivers, I actually talked about the Dream Foundation. And so today on this episode, we have Kisa Heyer, who is the CEO of the Dream Foundation. And Kisa, welcome to Caregiving Club on Air.
Thank you so much, Sherri. It's such a pleasure to be here today.
Yes, well, it's great to have you. And of course, as we ask all of our guests, our first question is always, where are we talking to you from today?
I am at our national headquarters located in Santa Barbara, California.
Which is kind of a little bit down the freeway from me. I'm down in Southern California, but oh my gosh, that's my favorite drive, by the way, going up the coast of California. So beautiful, beautiful area there in Santa Barbara. Well, Kisa, as I said, I'm really thrilled to have you on because I think a lot of our listeners are probably fairly familiar with things like the Make-A-Wish Foundation or the Starlight Foundation, which grant wishes to terminally ill children. What a lot of people don't realize is that they only grant the wishes for people who are under the age or just 18 or under. And so you have really filled the gap for granting wishes to terminally ill adults. So tell us more about the Dream Foundation, how you got started and who you serve.
Oh, well, thank you so much. We were founded here in Santa Barbara 30 years ago, and we started as a local organization, and over the last 3 decades really grew probably about 10 years ago, expanded quite rapidly and spread across the country. We are the only national dream granting organization for terminally ill adults serving the entire U.S. and Puerto Rico. We serve end-of-life dreams that offer joy, comfort, and closure. Our recipients, as you mentioned, are adults. They must be over the age of 18 or older and have a life expectancy of 12 months or less. unless they have a degenerative disease such as ALS or Huntington's, where they might not be able to enjoy the dream after 12 months. They also need to live in the US or Puerto Rico and lack the means to fulfill the dream on their own. And I'm very proud to say that in the last 30 years, we have served more than 35,000 dreams.
Wow. Oh, that's just so tremendous and such a wonderful focus for people because I think, very often once we get a devastating diagnosis, particularly if it's a terminal illness, everyone sees that period of time as kind of decline. And yet, as you mentioned, there can still be joyful moments. There can still be things that we can look forward to. So I think it's just fantastic what you're doing. Tell us, maybe share with us some of the wonderful wishes that you've granted over the years so people can get a sense of from the very small, I know, to kind of more of the bigger wishes that some of your recipients have had.
Well, first of all, we like to say that we own the word dream and we serve dreams, not wishes. We like to reserve wishes for another organization that everybody knows serves children. So we say that children have wishes, adults have dreams. And really, what we've seen is that every dream is as unique as its recipient. And over the last 11 years, I have seen thousands come to life. And people often ask, what's your favorite dream? And it's impossible to say because each one is unique and incredibly special to the individual. And, oftentimes when somebody does receive a devastating diagnosis, it's a time to take stock and really think about what is important and what matters most at the end. And for some people, that could be something just really to aid in their comfort. We've had many requests over the years for adjustable beds. One woman whose name is Maya from Florida, age 45, she was a Navy veteran. She comes to mind straight away. She wanted a comfortable bed to sleep in during her remaining months. We've had other people do something more on the inspirational side. Recently, we had a woman named Judy, age 82, from St. Paul, Minnesota, who reached out to us. She wanted to ride on a Harley Davidson motorcycle, and she was able to do that. One woman that I will absolutely never forget because she actually came and spoke at an event for us, and I heard the story from her firsthand. She reached out to us and wanted to buy a wedding dress. It was actually her mother who was ill. Her mother's name was Carolyn, also from Florida. Her daughter, Crystal, reached out to us and asked to buy this wedding dress together with her mother. She didn't have a fiance. I don't even think she had a boyfriend at the time, but she wanted that dress so that there would be a piece of her mother with her one day when she got married. So really some beautiful, lasting legacy moments that people reach out to us to create.
And it's so heartwarming to hear these stories. As you said, they're also very personal. And yet it gives enough uplifting sense to, again, kind of sometimes the sadder side of what might be happening in your life. One of the things I think is also so wonderful is when a loved one gets a diagnosis, it really is a diagnosis for the family or for the family caregiver, whether you're a spouse or an adult daughter or son or whomever. Tell us a little bit about how the response that you've had from family caregivers who have found you and who have reached out to you to help their loved one during those last days.
Well, the response has been really overwhelming. And oftentimes we hear about the impact that we've had years, sometimes decades later. Sometimes a child in the family, we've maybe granted their parent a dream. Years later, when they're raised, we'll receive a donation from them or a letter saying, this is what it meant to me then as a child, and these are the memories that I am left with thanks to Dream Foundation. And those are the stories that we love. But every dream we hear about afterwards, it's the gratitude really from the entire family that really helps spur us on and continue this work.
Yeah, I can imagine. And I'm so glad that we're able to have you on this episode because it is kind of the season of giving. And I wanted to have you specifically for this episode so people could be thinking about if they want to do something for whether it's a family member or a friend or neighbor or whomever. This is a really great and wonderful, and lasting gift really for the family. I want to turn to something because obviously you're dealing with end of life dreams. And in our society, there's still somewhat of a taboo about talking about death, facing those end of life decisions, and as you mentioned, even dreams. What advice do you have for our listeners, or what do you see in terms of helping people, again, not just look at this as all downhill, all depressing, but there can still be some of those joyful moments? What are the things that you talk to your donors, other people about?
Well, first of all, we believe that death and dying does not need to be taboo, but we recognize that certainly things are changing slowly. But we speak about death and dying openly and freely, and we believe in living life to its absolute fullest, even when death is imminent. We have learned more often than not, an adult's dream is about legacy, instilling memories for those that they will leave behind. Approximately 30% of our recipients have children under the age of 18 living in the home. And a dream allows not only the recipient to look forward to something and create memories, but it allows their children, their grandchildren, their loved ones that same opportunity. We have also learned that a dream can act as a catalyst for difficult and, as you say, taboo discussions, such as children saying, "Why are we going on this trip?" Or "What does this afternoon at the zoo represent? Why are we taking these family photos?" Dream Foundation dreams are not about death, but joy, comfort, and closure, no matter what the circumstances.
And I know you don't do, obviously, counseling, but do you ever get calls from maybe a family caregiver who says, "I really wanna do this for, my dad, my grandmother, or whomever, but I just don't know how to bring it up to them," or, I mean, do you ever get that where you can kinda help coach somebody that wants to do this for somebody but doesn't know how to approach it with their loved one?
Well, yes, we do get that question a lot. And I think the most simple answer that we say is, well, share them the work that we do and say, what would your dream be? That's the easiest question to ask. And it really kind of opens the doors for people to really think about what might be important to them at that moment. And oftentimes, as a disease progresses, the dream request can change too. And we're certainly used to that and able to accommodate that. Um, but really, we have found that by just being here and starting that conversation, we can offer a greater sense of reprieve for family caregivers. So often, the recipient and the loving caregivers think and talk nothing about the business of managing the disease. They're talking about medication, doctor's appointments, therapy appointments, paperwork, financials, all of the tiny but very hard and important things that come along with losing a loved one. And this notion of a dream can offer such a joyous topic of conversation, something for everyone to look forward to. And ultimately, it's a week, a day, or perhaps even an hour free from this messiness surrounding the matter of death. A few years ago, we did a research study in conjunction with the American Psychiatric Association, and we confirmed that 80% of dream recipients receive a greater sense of well-being after having had a dream, which we really think validates the role that final dreams, the important role they play in palliative care.
Absolutely. And again, having just something bright to look forward to is such a wonderful, sense for everybody who's involved. Now, I know that as many nonprofits, it's been a tough economic time. I know people have been pulling in their belts, and you get, I think it's 100% of your ability to, fund these dreams come from donors, both individuals and corporate donors. Tell us, from a corporate sense, a company or sponsorship or whatever, what can companies and some of those organizations do to help you?
Well, I'm so glad you asked because, yes, we are constantly fundraising. That's a big part of what I do for the organization. And there are so many ways that people can be involved in making dreams come true, either individuals or corporate. So I'll speak a little bit about both. 60% of our dreams involve travel, and we are so fortunate to partner with major airlines like Alaska and United, where individuals can donate their miles. If someone has a rental home or access to a rental home, they can join our Dream Vacation Rental Network, where you can donate or discount your rental property for recipients and their families to stay on their dream. And I have to say, to be able to have a property such as that is so much more comfortable for the entire family. To have access to a kitchen, multiple bedrooms, these are just really important donations that we really value. We also have a high need for donated Visa gift cards, gas cards, restaurant cards to assist with our recipients for the different elements of their travel. And we also encourage donations, cash donations. One time, we have a monthly giving program of any amount, large or small. They all make a difference. And we've had people get really creative and have fun raising funds on social media, birthday fundraisers, fundraisers with friends at a local restaurant. On our website, which is www.dreamfoundation.org, we have a section called Get Involved in the top bar, and then how you can help. And we have a whole page full of a variety of different ways that people can help.
Which is so wonderful. And again, so often when you have a family and you have a loved one who has been given a terminal diagnosis, a lot of friends and other family members say, what can I do? I know I talk to caregivers all the time, and sometimes you don't have the list ready on all the many things that you can take help. But this would be a wonderful, could you help fund this, or could you make a donation or give this gift, for my loved one? I think is one of the ways that people can really
Yes.
help.
Absolutely. We've had a number and increasing grateful families leaving tribute gifts as well, which can be very impactful. And I didn't mention earlier, we also have, and you kind of alluded to it, a corporate partnership tiered level of benefits that we have for our corporate partners. And so we're always happy to discuss. We conduct corporate partner employee volunteer initiatives all throughout the country. And so that's something that we're always open to as well. And we have a number of corporate partnerships in place too.
Which is wonderful. So, we've covered so much ground today, but is there anything we didn't talk about that you feel is important for our audience?
Well, I think oftentimes, particularly this audience, people may want to know what the criteria is
Oh,
for submitting for their loved one to actually receive a dream. And this can be for family caregivers or for medical teams, for friends, or for anyone. It is very easy to apply for a dream. I think, first of all, the first step is to decide which program to apply under. We have a general dream granting program. And we also have, just in the last 10 years, started a program called Dreams for Veterans, which serves our nation's terminally ill military veterans, active service members, members of the Reserve and National Guard. We have a separate URL for that called dreamsforveterans.org. In order to apply for the veteran program, we also require proof of military service. And all potential applicants can apply online, or they can download an application from our website, email it, or mail it directly to our office. The process is really simple and it can be done quickly. Every potential recipient must provide a photograph, a letter describing their dream, proof of annual income, and a signed and completed dream agreement, including medical verification to be completed by a treating physician or hospice representative, and a completed and signed HIPAA form. Sounds like a lot, but I can assure you it's really pretty straightforward process.
yeah, it does sound like a lot, but it is pretty straightforward. And I think obviously it's, well intended, because you want to make sure we're getting these dreams to the people who really need them. And I love the fact that you have now the Special Military Veterans Fund, which is, so near and dear to my heart. My stepdad was a retired Navy.
Oh.
So that's really great. But, it's just, as I said before, I've been a fan of what you do for many, many years. And I'm so excited to be able to get the information out about the organization. And particularly during this time of year when I think people are really in the giving mood and thinking more about family and all of that. So, Kisa, it's been so great to have you on our episode today. Thank you so much.
Well, it's been such a pleasure. And I have to say, we have the utmost respect for caregivers, and we really hope we can be a tool and a resource and even a sense of joy for what will be a very difficult time in people's lives. So please don't hesitate to reach out, apply, ask questions, share. I encourage you to follow us on social media. We share our dream stories in many occasions. Instagram is at dream_foundation. Facebook is at Dream Foundation, and LinkedIn as well is at Dream-Foundation. And you can find it all on our website.
And we're going to include those on our episode guide page as well. So we'll make it easy for people. And before we let you go, tell us again the URL, the website where people can go, both for the regular Dream Foundation, but also the special veterans URL again.
Yes. www.dreamfoundation.org is our regular just Dream Foundation website. And then we also have www.dreamsforveterans.org.
Wonderful. Well, again, Kisa, thank you so much for making time for us today. It's just been wonderful having you on our episode.
Well, thank you. What a pleasure. I really enjoyed speaking with you, and I hope we get to meet in person sometime.
Absolutely. Thank you. So was that just a wonderful and inspirational interview with Kisa? As I said, I love the Dream Foundation. In fact, I did a shout out on Giving Tuesday for giving to the Dream Foundation, Hilarity for Charity, and also Tunnel to Towers, which are my three top favorite nonprofits that are helping veterans and their families, that are helping people with dementia, but particularly dementia caregivers and Alzheimer's caregivers, and then also the Dream Foundation, which is granting these wonderful dreams for terminally ill adults, which is really a wonderful gift, I think. And there's lots of ways that you can participate. So with that, let's dive into Well Home Design News. Now, as I mentioned, Older Driver Safety Awareness Week is December 4th through the 8th. Interesting time of year, but with the sun kind of lower on the horizon, and I noticed the glare so much more, it's probably a good time to be bringing forward a lot more awareness about older drivers. And so I wanted to read to you just some statistics and things. This is according to AARP. Between 2012 and 2021, the U.S. population of people 65 and older increased by 29%. So we do know that there's a lot more older drivers on the road. And in fact, more than 40,000 people die in car crashes in the United States every year. And more than 60% of those deadly crashes occur at night. Now, interestingly enough, the statistics from the National Transportation Highway Safety Patrol Board, whatever that group is, every year they put out that teenagers actually have more crashes and injuries in crashes than older adults. The older adults are more vulnerable to fatality from crashes. So it's because we don't, our bodies don't repair themselves as quickly. We're more vulnerable with broken bones and other things that can happen. So, but when it comes to, older adults, there's a lot of stuff that we could do, but we know, again, for anybody, our vision diminishes at night. And then as we age, as I've said many times before, even in the home environment, at age 60, you need 3 times more light than you did at age 20. So that just shows you what's happening to your eye health and how it's kind of deteriorating. Let's just face it. It's why we need reading glasses and all the other things. Now, the other thing that's happening is a lot of the newer cars have these super bright LED lights. I mean, it's like just blinding, okay, for anybody who's driven at night. And that makes it super tough. A lot of the highway lights are LED, they're blue light. They don't make the contrast actually better. The other types of lights we had was better. So, we're not going in the right direction here. But the National Safety Council states that even with high beam headlights, you're only seeing about 500 feet ahead. So there's less time to react to objects on the road. especially if you're driving at higher speeds. That's, again, just in general for all of us. And then, of course, dusk is worse, because one of the things that also happens is not only do we need more light, we need more contrast. And so at dusk, there's actually less contrast because of that kind of low light that's coming in from the setting sun. It's harder to see the differentiation between a curb in the street or even the lanes in a street or a highway. Contrast just isn't there, and particularly in older neighborhoods where they're not paving and painting the streets all the time. It's really, really tough, and that's probably where maybe a lot of our parents are living still in some older neighborhoods. So I've got some solutions for you. Those are all the bad things. Here's some solutions, because I know a lot of us get concerned about our older loved ones who are driving still. We know that a lot of older adults do outlive their driving capability and their driving safety. But we also know that a lot of older adults will do driver's retirement on their own. They'll say, you know what, I'm not going to drive at night, or I'm only going to drive in the neighborhood. They still can have accidents in the neighborhood, but here's some things to think about. Drive Sharp are online exercises that are actually not driver simulation. It's actually brain health. Comes from our favorite friends at Posit Science. You guys know I love these guys. I've had Henry Monkey has been on our podcast in the past. I wrote about them in my book, Me Time Monday. They are really the top organization in my mind, the top company who's doing brain exercises. And this one is specifically to increase your reaction speed, increase your spatial perception, and be able to help you be a better driver. And what's really interesting is a lot of the auto insurance companies are now accepting that if you go through this 12-week Drive Sharp course, they will give you a discount as an older driver on your insurance. So there's good news there. Also, there's something called CarFit. If you're not familiar with this, it's a free in-person educational program that helps older drivers make adjustments in their car and ensure that it fits just right. Because we know that sometimes, we lose muscle and bone, density as we age. So we do shrink a little bit. I remember my grandpa getting into his car and he could barely see over the driver's wheel because he just got so small. But, we need to adjust the pedals. We need to adjust where the steering wheel is. We need to adjust the mirrors. Amazingly enough, people don't touch their mirrors and really adjust them. So the CarFit will take you through all those different points. They'll make sure the car does fit for you. And this was created by the American Society on Aging in collaboration with the American Automobile Association and AARP and the American Occupational Therapy Association. So lots of great organizations involved in that particular. And you can find these at auto clubs in your area. You can go onto the CarFit website. We'll have a link on the episode guide page. You can find out where they're doing these courses. I think they're mostly free. So those are great. Now, I also mentioned that Uber Health has recently announced, just within the last month or so, a Caregiver App. Okay, what is that? Very interesting, right? It's a very specific app that you can download as a family caregiver, and then you sync it up to the health plan, the Medicare plan that your loved one may have. Now, most of these are tapping into a Medicare Advantage plan. So if your loved one does not have a Medicare Advantage plan or what we call Medicare Part C plan, you may not be able to use this as effectively. But what it does, and for those people who can sync those up, is your health plan now is offering free rides to seniors via the Caregiver App. So what happens is, and many people aren't aware of this, whether you call a cab or you hail a cab, even if you get an Uber or Lyft and you dial up a ride, many of the drivers won't pick up older adults who can't get in and out of the car easily, or they won't pick them up if they have a walker or a wheelchair. So there are a fleet of drivers now that have been trained, and we've talked about GoGo Grandparent in the past. GoGo Grandparent's kind of a concierge service where they've really overseen a lot of the training of these particular drivers at Uber and Lyft and other rideshare companies that will accept those types of older drivers and make sure that we're following them to make sure they got picked up and dropped off okay. But with this Caregiver App from Uber Health, what it's doing is it's tapping into the benefits from your loved one's insurance and taking those free rides, and they're all different depending on the plan your loved one has. Depends on how many rides you'll get. But what a great way to both, you can track them, you can follow them to make sure, again, they're safe, they get picked up, dropped off okay. but now you don't always have to be the taxi cab. So that's why they call it the Caregiver App, because it's going to help out caregivers as well as the older adults. And we want to keep our older loved ones mobile and socially active. Very often when they stop driving, then they're just sitting at home and they may be lonely and they may be isolated. That's no good. We know it impacts health. So we want to make sure we keep them socially active. And then, as I mentioned, our holiday gift guide, just in terms of the well home design and kind of related to driving, one of our tips or one of our picks this year is the Night Glow Yellow Driving Glasses with Glare Cut technology. You're going to learn more about that if you check out our holiday gift guide, but they're really cool and they look cool. So that's a great gift idea for an older driver. And then just really quickly on shopping for the holidays, there's a couple of different online stores now that are dedicated to Alzheimer's products. One is called Relish. The Alzheimer's store is the other one. They've been around forever. You can check those out. They're great. They have very specific products and gift ideas for Alzheimer's adults, but also Carewell and Joe and Bella, which does adaptive clothing, and Carewell, which is kind of like, I would call it CVS or Rite Aid for older adults. But you should check those out. Those are great shopping places as well. We're going to have all of those on our episode guide page, all the links and everything. And then again, in our holiday gift guide, we're talking about air care, getting around, staying warm, growing your green thumb, and all kinds of other really great ideas. So you're going to want to check that out. And then, as I mentioned, in our pop culture segment for this episode, in my book, Me Time Monday, I had a chapter called Life is Wonderful. And it was based on the classic holiday movie, It's a Wonderful Life, one of my favorite movies of all time, but number one on my list for the holidays every single year. I always watch it, usually on Christmas Eve. It's kind of a tradition. And as I mentioned earlier, if you're watching this on YouTube, a friend of mine, when I was writing the book, bought this sign that says, It's a Wonderful Life. It's sitting right behind me right now. I have it on my credenza, and it makes me smile because I think that it's, I have a self-care in 7 minutes solution video, which we're doing for you now. Those are on our YouTube channel. And this one is on the 7 lessons that we can learn from George Bailey from that movie. But I think the wonderful thing that I get from that movie is that life can get messy. And life can get you down, right? I mean, and during the holidays, we think about joy. I've got my joy sweater on, my joy pillows behind me. We think about joy, and certainly that's what we want, and that's what many of us get during the holidays. But for many of us, it can also be tough, right? And we've got struggles. And if you're a caregiver, you may be burned out, and it's the end of the year, and you're just feeling like I got nothing left. So I think that the lesson that I get from this movie is that as tough as it gets, if you've got family and you've got friends and you've got that strong social convoy behind you, and that's a term from my book, the social convoy, then you can get through it. You can pretty much get through anything. A devastating diagnosis, burnout from being a caregiver, devastation at work or whatever it is. It's really about the relationships that we have. And so I wish you all that you have those types of relationships in your life and that you have a wonderful holiday season that is filled with joy. Thank you for joining us on this episode. A reminder, you can find more information in my book, Me Time Monday, the weekly wellness plan to find balance and joy for a busy life, or visit metimemonday.com or caregivingclub.com. I hope you enjoyed this episode of Caregiving Club on Air. Please hit the subscribe button to listen to us on our channels, Amazon Music, SiriusXM, iHeartRadio, Pandora, Spotify, Apple and Google Podcasts, and other listening channels. Check out all the resources and article links on our episode guide page at caregivingclub.com. Just hit the podcast tab at the top and email us with comments and questions at podcast@caregivingclub.com. Thank you again for listening. Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, and Happy New Year. Care and stay well.